To shape something means to give definite form, character, or organization to something. It means to adjust or adapt. It means to direct, as in one's course in life or the future. That is exactly what entrepreneurs do. We are shapers. We have a fire to take on challenges in ways that nobody else ever has. To take calculated but significant risks in order to make that happen. And ultimately, to shape the future that we all will live in. There is a rapidly growing entrepreneurial community here in Kansas City, and the impact is going to be very real and very lasting. And I'm lucky enough to have found myself right in the middle of all that excitement. The point of my talk is threefold. I want to inform you about the huge opportunity that Kansas City has right now and the tremendous momentum that is building. I want to educate you about what it means to be an entrepreneur and what it takes. And then I also want to excite you, to inquire, to care, to engage with this very fast-paced and exciting world. So there's a lot of great things about Kansas City, and I'm born and raised here, so I'm as big a fan as anybody. You know, the people are just generally nice and hardworking, willing to roll up their sleeves and get dirty if needed. The cost of living just can't be beat. I like to say that Kansas City has all the big city amenities, but maintains a small city vibe, and I love that, and I imagine many of you do too. But by being here in the Midwest and being here in Kansas City, we're also generally pretty conservative. And with that, oftentimes you take the more traditional path or the less risky path. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, but that is not the path for everybody. One of those alternative paths is entrepreneurship, and that's a path I have chosen. Growing up here in Kansas City, I don't remember talking about entrepreneurship. It was, success, and many of you may have experienced the same thing. Success for me in my class and my friends was kind of to work at Sprint or Garmin or Cerner or DST, and many of them did, and that's great. But that's not for everybody. And that conversation that didn't happen with me is something that we need to change. And right now, in Kansas City, is the perfect opportunity to make that change. Kansas City has a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity right now. Google chose Kansas City as the first city to launch Google Fiber, which is the fastest publicly available internet in the United States. And this is truly historic. People will be able to point to this point in time in Kansas. Kansas City, Kansas was the first city in the world at the time at which the internet and technology standards of the United States improved. And it starts with us. We have this resource that nobody else in the world has. The world is watching to see what we do, and we have to take advantage of this opportunity. It would be dumb of us not to. And there's a group of very motivated entrepreneurs that see this opportunity, and we're trying to do everything we can to make sure this opportunity doesn't pass us by. And I'd like to encourage all of you that if this is intriguing to you, to reach out to us and to engage as well. That movement has been called Kansas City Startup Village. It is a grassroots, entrepreneur-led movement to elevate the Kansas City startup community and to change the national perception of Kansas City. There's kind of three things that we hope to achieve with this. And one that I alluded to is kind of elevate the scene as a whole, increase communication and collaboration between all pieces of the entrepreneurial community instead of the silos that existed beforehand. We want to change that national perception. I don't know about you, but it bugs me that when I talk to some friends out on the coast and meet new people, that the reputation of Kansas City is very short of what it really is. Oftentimes it's kind of thought of as like a cow town in flyover country. And we all know that's just not the case, but we need to tell our story. We need to change that. And right now, we have a great opportunity. And the third thing really that we hope comes of all this energy that's building right now is to raise the attention and awareness within Kansas City itself, to bring it to the mainstream, to have a conversation with all of you that maybe this is something you've never really talked about before. And I can guarantee you a lot of the young people in high schools that this may be interest to don't even know anything about it. And that's something that needs to change. Like I said, we are changing that. So why is this so important? It's important because of people like Arash here. Many of you probably have never heard of him, but he started a company called Dropbox, which many of you probably do know. He was a 2004 graduate of Blue Valley Northwest High School right here in Kansas City. He has gotten millions of dollars of investment. He has hired hundreds of people. He is worth an estimated $600 million individually. He is in San Francisco. We need to change that. We need to be able to retain our top talent. That is why this is so important. The future, whether we all want to admit it or not, technology is going to be integrated into all of that. And Kansas City has a hard time attracting the most technologically advanced talent around. We need to change that. It's going to create jobs, innovation, and it'll change the economic future of Kansas City. So I wanted to kind of dive into the mind of an entrepreneur as well, now that you kind of understand why it's important and what's going on. So I polled a number of fellow entrepreneurs to kind of see if they, what we all could kind of come to consensus on. What's the most important characteristics? What's the most important qualities? And so this is what we came up with. The first is entrepreneurship takes sacrifice. Many different forms of sacrifice, and I know many of you probably immediately think financial, and yes, that can be a big piece of it. So short-term financial stability is lots of times something that needs to be sacrificed. But other times it's time, sacrificing social life. I can guarantee you my friends would say they've seen me a lot less in the last year or two since I've been trying to build my company. But being dedicated to the cause and seeing the long-term value, it's something I'm willing to do. Something as simple as sleep. Lots of times people have full-time jobs and they try and start something on the side. And what they're sacrificing is 8 hours, 10 hours of sleep that they may love, but it's worth it because they were building something that's way more valuable and something that's lasting and changes and shapes the future. The next thing is hustle. And at first I had hard work, but it's more than hard work. There's a difference between working 100 hours and saying I can't work any harder. It's not about working harder, it's about working smarter. And something when I was doing this kind of survey, one thing that someone said that at first I thought didn't make any sense, he said entrepreneurs are lucky, or they need to be lucky. I was like, what does that even mean, lucky? Like cross your fingers and hope you make something that people like? It's not that at all. It's about hustle. It's about creating your own luck. It's about working smart and hard. It's about putting yourself in opportunities, as many opportunities as you can to get lucky. And eventually, once you get good, you get lucky all the time. So that's what he was talking about. Hustle is about creating your own luck. So adaptability. This is something that I've seen take down a lot of very promising entrepreneurs. They're too stubborn. They think their way is the right way, even when, as you go, you learn the facts and feedback that's not necessarily the case. All of us, including myself, anybody that's been in it, we'll be the first to admit, lots of times we don't know what we're doing, but we're trying to figure it out. And you have to be willing to hustle. You got to be willing to sacrifice. You got to be willing to adapt, to be able to take on those new challenges that come and take that feedback and not take it personally that you may not have been right the first time. And that's the other part about why coming together and leveraging all of you guys that may have good feedback is so critical. You ultimately are the people that would be using these products and services. So getting your feedback and being engaged is critical to developing this startup and entrepreneurial community that's building. Passion. You have to be 100% into what you're doing. I've talked to many people, and after talking to them, if I don't sense that they're truly in it, a lot of people just like the idea of entrepreneurship. They like the idea that I can make my own schedule. Trust me, you do not want my schedule. It's insanity most of the time, and there's so many sleepless nights. Like, I don't know how I'm going to do this next thing, but I have to figure it out. If you're not 100% dedicated to it, you'll never make it. And I've seen that happen many times as well. So, endurance. The thing that's funny about starting your own business is, to the general public, when you finally get your break and make whatever it is that you get funded or whatever, people think you're like wow, they came out of nowhere. I can guarantee you that's not the case. One of the stories I recently read is actually about Macklemore. He's a rapper, and many of you may know his song Thrift Shop. And the story was actually saying how he's an entrepreneur. He has been around for 10 years in Seattle, building his brand, building his company, building his startup. And it took years and years of trying to create that luck, trying to create the situation for him to get lucky, and he finally did. Years, 10 years. But it takes endurance and passion. He was 100% dedicated, and now he's there today. So here's a rhetorical question. How many of you have had a business idea or a product idea in the course of your life? How many of you have seen a product come out and say, oh, I thought of that 2 years ago. Why didn't you do it? The biggest differentiator for entrepreneurs from a hardworking person is likely risk-taking. You have to be willing to take a risk. Yeah, you may not know how to get there. Yeah, there may be somebody else. Yeah, you don't know how, XXX, so many things. But you have to be willing to take that risk. And that's the biggest thing that we all decide to do. And that's also where it's critical for you guys to get involved. Support, help, validate different assumptions and help us do these things to take it to the next level. It's very critical, and it's very important that you all get involved. So I wanted to take a second so I'm talking high level here, and I want to actually show you some faces in the entrepreneurial community here. Some people that are taking on real world problems and attacking them in really exciting ways. So American family farms are disappearing. 330 farmers leave their land permanently every week. 10 commercial agricultural companies account for the majority of the food that we eat here in the United States. I'd like to introduce you to Nathan Jones. His company is Ag Local. They are creating a platform that provides the tools to these family farms that can compete in the global and national marketplace so that the American family farm can continue to exist and not have to sell out to these big corporations. If any of you have ever tried to send money internationally, you know it's a very painful, expensive, and inefficient process. I'd like to introduce you to Jessie Bishop. Her company is Clink Mobile. She has experience working in third world or underdeveloped countries and has developed a platform that allows people to exchange money on cell phones. And you don't even need data for that. The vast majority of people in the world, even in underdeveloped countries, have cell phones. So she's building that right here in Kansas City. Extremely exciting. So next, many of you have probably heard of Pandora or Spotify, these music streaming services online that are free. But what most people don't realize is that they're losing millions of dollars a year. Even though we enjoy the free music, they're losing all this money because people don't want to pay for their premium services. This is Kyle Johnson. His company is Bixby. He is building a platform that makes it profitable for these companies to operate so we can continue to have all this awesome free music. Pretty cool deal. Also here in Kansas City. Finally, probably maybe the craziest one of them all, thinks that he can take on Google when it comes to search. Google, as you all know, is a list of results. And it's been the same for 10 years. It's built for computers. But we all now use mobile phones. It's a very different experience. And also with the proliferation of social media, we interact differently. This is Mike Farmer. Mike Farmer is building Leap 2. Leap 2 is a new search platform. I just saw it earlier today. It's amazing. He brings in all different kinds of context to make it relevant to you. He gives you images and everything straight, first impression, which is such a drastically improved way to interact and search. So these are some of the faces, but there's many, many more. These are, just take a look real quick, these are everyday people. You would never be able to pick them out that are doing extraordinary things, that are shaping the future of Kansas City and the world. And I encourage you to engage with them, to reach out, find ways to get involved. It's a very exciting time. Kansas City has a huge opportunity. So please, take this to heart. If this is interest to you, reach out to us. And ultimately, I'd like to invite you to shape Kansas City with us and keep the fire burning. Thank you.